what's funny is it's weird to say Happy Monday because these episodes usually come out on Friday. But, so it's weird. Well, it's not only, let me see if I can say this without just completely scrambling my words. Not only is this episode making its debut on a Monday, we actually recorded it on a Monday too. So that's just wild and crazy, y'all. Welcome to Everything's Relative with Eve Sturgis. That's me. This is a podcast where I talk to people about the DNA discoveries that they are experiencing and all the ways that they're managing the different ways that it shakes you up when you find out or accidentally find out or accidentally uncover family secrets. So today, if you are listening the day that this episode came out, it's November 30th, which means 2020 is on the home stretch. Pretty wild if anybody's been paying attention to time and how it no longer exists anymore. It goes fast, it goes slow. Also, I've been noticing or picking up on like lots of jokes and ideas about how we all keep saying that 2020 is a terrible year, as if January 1st is going to be the first day of something different, as if like coronavirus will be gone January 1st because it will be 2021 and everything will be better. So it probably won't happen, but it's still nice in some ways to think of 2020 coming to a close. Did you have Thanksgiving just a few days ago? Did you eat all the turkey? Did you stay home instead of traveling like the CDC asked you to? I actually recorded this part of the podcast before Thanksgiving even, so I can't report exactly what I ate, but I can tell you that I plan to eat everything. I love to make a kale pomegranate salad, and I love to make pumpkin cheesecake, and I'm really excited for everything else. My in-laws, who live nearby and are a part of our COVID pod, are having us over for outdoor Thanksgiving, and I'm looking forward to a day with a little bit of relaxation. But anyway, I want to talk about this episode. So Lily Wood connected and hooked up to tape this episode. Okay, wait, let me try that again. Lily and I connected we connected. I'm just going to leave all this in because that's how today's going. Okay, so Lily and I connected and we hooked up really fast to tape this episode. Like we didn't know each other, and then we met, connected, hooked up on Facebook, and agreed to record really fast. It was like just a matter of days. But when we started to talk, I felt like I have known her for years, and I can't speak for her, but I feel like we just super connected and started having fun right away. And I think we'll be doing more of these or getting together in other different fun ways for our podcasts and for other NPE events in the future. I really hope so because I had so much fun. Lily Wood has a podcast called NPE Stories, and I have a podcast called Everything's Relative, as you know. And so we basically have the same goal: to collect stories and share the message that NPEs are not alone. So we thought we would get together for each other, and here is that episode. This is it. So what you do is you listen to this episode and then hop over to Lily's podcast, which is called NPE Stories. N is in Nancy, PE Stories. And you listen to her episode. So I hope that's a little bit fun. Should be pretty simple. I hope you enjoy hanging out with Lily as much as I did. And if you've just come over here from listening to Lily's podcast first, welcome. Welcome to Everything's Relative. It's great to have you. So go ahead and play my time with Lily, and I'll talk to you again at the end, like I always do. Okay, we've started recording.
All good on my end.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'll just kind of like dive in and let everybody know what's going on. I'm here with Lily Wood today. It's very exciting. We've done a crossover episode. So I just spent an hour or so with her on her podcast. We just talked and talked and talked. And I think we just started to do it again. And then we're like, we got to focus. We got to do the podcast. We got to do it. So now we're recording. We're going to focus on NPEs. So we're here. So Lily is... It's very exciting. I just want to keep calling you Lily Wood. Do people do that? Do they just call you first and last name? all
That's totally fine. They do that with my daughter. She's a Hollywood, so feel free
Yo,
to call
are
me.
you kidding me? Come on. Yeah, so the reason, and I do that with a lot of people, but like certain names just have that ring. So it's really exciting to have Lilywood here today because she has a podcast, NPE Stories. It is similar to mine, but very different because we're different people and we have come at it with different angles and experiences and different tones. So it's really fun to get to have someone else that not only has an NPE story to share with us, but also she and I get to have a connection because we're both trying to spread the word and share our stories. So I have Lily Wood. I'm thrilled to have her here today. Thank you so much for giving me your afternoon.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. I'm having a lot of fun and I haven't laughed this hard in a while. So
no,
thank you, Eve.
oh yeah, it's really fun. My Mondays aren't normally this fun at all.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, it's been really fun and silly. So I am gonna my so okay. Um, I the first question I wanted to ask you is actually the same question you asked me, which is about your podcast, and I'm wondering if you could just like talk a little bit about what gave you the idea to do a podcast and why.
Yes, absolutely. I when I first found out I was an NPE, I was right, totally shocked and looking for any information I could find. And I remember a week after finding out, someone introduced the word NPE to me, all the different acronyms it can be, not parent expected, non paternal event. And I'm like, okay, there's a name for it. It's a really terrible name. It's a really terrible acronym, but okay, now I know what I am. And now I can start Googling this. And I did. And that's pretty soon I found my way into the Facebook groups. And I was obsessed with scrolling and reading everyone's story. I was spending hours, right, in the beginning, just reading and reading and reading to the point where it was getting to be a little unhealthy. I needed to actually pull myself away from my devices and still do life like dishes and driving my kids places. But I was
Then have you slept?
exact. Oh, and I didn't. My poor husband next to me. I've got the lights on my devices till 1 in the morning, and yeah, I was so obsessed. But I've always been a podcast listener. It just works with my personality. I'm the sort of person that just puts it in my back pocket and goes about my day and does my stuff and takes in the content. So I'm looking on, I think, Apple Podcasts. I'm an iPhone user, and I'm typing in this word NPE because I don't know what else to type in. And I nothing at the time popped up for me. Now, I've since learned you can do things like DNA discoveries and surprises and genetic. I mean, there's many other search terms now I know to use and make my way to your podcast and others. But at the time, that's the only word I had to use. So I
Well, it's
was
so unfair to be, it's so unfair for all of us because it's like such a new thing that we have to, I mean, how do you type? I mean, yeah, I remember typing in like entire sentences like into the search that was like, how to find when your dad is not your dad. Like, it's like, what?
yes, exactly. So again, this terrible acronym that we have that we own, it's ours, this NPE. Um, I wanted to take all those stories I was reading on the Facebook groups and I wanted them in audio format. That's all I want. I just wanted them in audio format so I could listen to them. And I'm like, why isn't there a podcast? Um, I've actually since found out there was yours because I found out an hour or two ago that you started April 2019, did you say?
Hmm.
Yes. Okay. So I thought I can compile these stories. I don't want to share my own, but I can record them. And I was only maybe 1 month into my own journey and I decided to start a podcast. Um, very fresh, very raw, and I did not want my name associated with it at all. I said I'll only go by the first name Lily at the time that was back in 2019, and I just
I was gonna say that I am an interrupter. That's so funny because I feel like all of a sudden we all know that this NPE Stories has Lily Wood on it. And for a long time, you were like this mystery podcast. It was like this mystery. Everyone's like, there's like a lady. Her name is Lily. We don't know where she is. Like, it was like you were
Good.
this, you were like this voice from a basement. I don't know. I always imagined you in a church. I don't know why.
That was what I was going for. Well, no, I mean, I
Mhm.
was going for the fact that I was just Lily. I was carrying on my mom's shame and secrecy, and I was like,
Mhm.
I have to keep this quiet. I have to be quiet about it. I don't know if maybe my biological father will one day include me in his life. I need to be, I need to keep this a secret. I was such a different, scared person in the beginning. I started I just launched the trailer. That's all I did. And in the trailers, when I asked for people to start submitting, and I actually had a few people that offered. So thank God other people were willing to share those stories in the beginning because I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I still literally every day have no idea what I'm doing. Uh, but I'm more of an organizer, I think, is what I would call myself. Just an organizer of everyone else's story.
Hmm. Well, you're doing a wonderful job, whether it's organizing or facilitating. We could say
Yes,
that you're a
I like
curator.
it. Thank you. Yes.
Lily Wood, curation of stories.
I mean, really, it's everyone else. They're so brave and they're such better storytellers than I. And they're willing to dive deep into this stuff that, it's uncomfortable to talk about this sometimes, depending on where you are in your healing process. And, I'm just really thankful that people are willing to share their story because I love listening to it. And the whole time I'm just nodding, like nodding along in agreement with everything they're saying.
Yeah, it's the connection of familiarity. Is that what it is? Or yeah, that it's really really powerful. That's something that I have understood it in the past, but not perhaps as like profoundly as with the NPE experience, for sure, for me. So you were a month in when you started the podcast. So you are now
Oh, yeah, 18
a year
months
and a
in, a year
half
and a
in.
half in. And I don't really think anything has changed in my story. But yeah, I'm feeling much better. And I'm,
Mhm.
I am a year and a half in. I have all these resources I use. Has anything changed? No. I still have no contact with my biological father or new half siblings, but I now know there's such a thing as an NPE. I'm on all the Facebook groups. I listen to your podcast. I read the books. I do the things. The only thing I haven't done yet is this retreat. I mean, COVID has messed everything up, and one of these days I want to get one of those NPE retreats on my docket. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think you will have a really good time. Um, because I just had a really good time. So I feel like we are similar in a lot of ways, and I think it would really crack you up to go on one of these retreats and be good for you. That's the thing is like it was um it was like so fun, and it did like crack me up. Like it just was so much more fun than I anticipated. But but also like I've said this so many times to people in the past couple weeks, like the everyone's ability to pivot from laughing and joking and telling wild stories or saying wild things and having a great time, pivoting to being able to tend to somebody that was in a place of vulnerability or sharing a story or being present for the different facilitators that were there for different workshops. Like it was super amazing. People were able to swing um, in a way that I don't know that everyone can do, and it was very impressive.
So true. That sounds like my cup of tea. I'm that way. I'm like I could be joking around and then the next day I'm like, let's get real, let's get into it.
Yeah, yeah, people
Yeah.
were doing it. It was very cool. It was very, very cool. I really admired everybody's like vulnerability. It was cool. So yeah, let's go do one together.
Okay.
Um so okay, so Do you want to share your NPE story? What parts of it are you comfortable sharing? Can you tell us about how you do it? Or you and you also don't
Uh,
have to.
gosh, no, I don't want to. No, I just uh I'm I love listening, and sometimes I feel, oh, it's happening right now. I get this physical, like my throat and my chest get tight because I think, like, ugh, this sucks. Talking
Mhm.
about mostly what I'm thinking of in my head. I'm not communicating this out loud. Okay. The behaviors since finding out I was an NPE 18 months ago have been particularly painful and something I'm working with right now in
Mhm,
life
mhm.
with, you know, um, but yeah, I can kind of give you my background. Should I do that?
Sure, or the bullet points or
Yes.
none of it, and I can just ask you questions.
Yes. Yes to all of that.
Okay, so this will be kind of like I also want to say like a mystery story, but I mean that in the best way, because it also I think something that we could really like illustrate right now is how the details don't matter because what is important is like is the way that we navigate the experience with our feelings, um, and our relationships, which is so much about what this is about. So okay, so a year and a half ago, 18 months ago, you discovered you were an NPE.
Hmm.
And was that through a recreational um, mail in DNA test?
Yep. Just one of those tests. I'd originally taken the 23andMe, and was mostly for health reasons. I'm a health nut, and I wanted to know all the markers
Mhm.
that I could potentially have, and I wanted to do all the preventative maintenance that was necessary if I did have one of those markers. I got back my results, and I didn't actually figure out I was an NPE from that first take-home test. It showed what kind of planted that first seed that I was not it showed that I was not half French as I thought I was.
Mm.
I have a Norwegian mother and a French father, or so I thought,
Mhm.
and I was named after my French grandmother Lily Marie Guimau, and I have all this French culture and French wine and French this and all my dark little small French aunties. So I really identified as that. And when I was shocked, I had 1%, I think 1 to 2%. They estimated. Called my sister up. I'm like, look at this! I have more Italian than French. Isn't that strange? My sister had taken ancestry, and she said, no, we have French. And that's when the confusion starts, and
Mhm.
that's when I'm not so sure about this technology, and maybe a technician got their hair in the tube. And uh that's when all the weird questions, and my brain's trying to make sense of my strange results. And she had just spent $100 at Ancestry, and I had spent about that much at 23andMe. But we both determined, like, we definitely need to take the same company's test.
Mhm.
I wish I'd taken it sooner, but it was about 4 more months till I did Ancestry. I think they had a promo or some special. I finally took it, and that's when I started to make the jokes to people, like, well, you know, who maybe I'll find out I have a different father.
What when you said I wish I had taken it for I wish it hadn't taken me so long or it took me about 4 months to take it. What do you feel like would be different if you had taken it sooner?
Oh gosh, I guess nothing would have really been different. I think it still would have played out the same way. I I was just kind of, but the thing is, I was alone. I was alone with my confusion,
Mhm.
and it wasn't until I had confirmed results when both my sister and I took the ancestry test, that I was like, oh, here's why we have
Uh,
different results.
mhm. Got it. Yep. Okay. Yeah, like clarity. Clarity would have come sooner.
Yes, yes. We ended up having different results when my ancestry results came out, obviously, because we have different fathers. Shocking. I had I had in my DNA matches, I had my aunt and then my sister's name, and then I had my brother's name, but I don't have a brother.
Mm-hmm.
So that was confusing.
Mm-hmm.
My mom and I already weren't on very good, we didn't have the strongest relationship at that point. So when I decided to just get in my car with my 1 hour old results and go over to her house to talk to her, my husband was saying, maybe you shouldn't talk with her. Maybe you got to think this through. And I was like, well, exactly. Our relationship isn't that great. So what do I have to lose? Why not just ask her? I assumed there was some sort of explanation for this. Uh, she, she, when I got to her house and showed her my confusing results, she just didn't really talk. She
Mm.
just kind of just sat there, like red eyes, red face. I looked like shock to me, whether or not it was because it was found out or whether or not it was finally confirmed. I don't know. She was definitely not comforting or helpful in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
It was it was actually pretty terrible. I don't think anyone actually feels good when they relive the moment of their confirmation that their dad is not their dad.
Yeah, it's so that's such a familiar story, like of of sort of like watching so many, whether it's over the phone or being there in person. It's like um it's a real disconnect between you and your parent all of a sudden.
Yeah, it really is. Ugh. Then things just got icky. Right? Because then your life just kind of falls apart when you find that out. And my stepdad was actually in the room the day I asked her, and I'm pulling my hair out. I'm like, Mom, are you saying my dad is not my dad? And she's immediately minimizing, like, oh, Lily, stop it. Your dad will always be your dad. Just like
Mhm.
I'm overreacting, Eve. Here I
Yeah,
am, me overreacting.
something dramatic.
My stepdad, I didn't realize this in my shock until later, but he is saying to her from across the kitchen, "Oh, you never thought this would come back and bite you, did you?" And I didn't I was like, "Wait, what? Did, did he know about this?" And he obviously didn't mean to say that out loud. And wait, did he know about this? What does he mean this didn't wouldn't come back and bite her? Yeah, yeah. Later, if I just skip ahead, it does turn out that although my mom never confirmed it with any sort of paternity test, and she never told anybody, she had suspected that my biological father, who was her coworker, uh, may have been my father. She had mentioned this to her husband, my stepdad, and had considered it, and whether or not he's a incredible protector of her. He's an enabler like you wouldn't believe. Um,
Hmm.
he will agree with her about anything till the end of time, which actually, I'm sure that's great for their marriage, but it's actually it's really unhealthy. Like really,
And mediocre stepdad.
yes. Yeah, yeah. So he kind of knew. So unfortunately, the estrangement isn't just my mom because that's where I'm at right now. I'm estranged from them. It's my stepdad as well because he's chosen his place, which is to be by my mom's side no matter what. And
Right.
yeah,
That's too bad. I
yeah.
mean, the overall estrangement is too bad.
Hmm.
And what about your sister? Is she in communication with you?
She's trying so hard, Eve. She's really trying. She's uh the first day she was shocked and she's calling in on speakerphone and my mom is answering and saying, immediately poo-pooing her and like, I yelling at my sister, I'll talk with you about this later. This is none of your business. And my sister, I think even she took the day off work. She was so upset about it as well. But she did go to the place where a lot of us go, a lot of us daughters, well, maybe a lot of children in general, like of protecting my mom. And it was for a few months there, it sucked. It really sucked. She, and I understand this through therapy, and I've put myself in her shoes and I try to be empathetic, but she was immediately protective of my mom. And she did the, you know, she doesn't, how did she say it? She was really worried about my mom feeling shame around this revelation. She didn't want my mom to feel pain. She didn't want her to feel embarrassed or guilty or ashamed. And she wanted to protect my mom. And I understand that. But they really, for a while there, were doing the, I'm the troublemaker
Mm-hmm.
scenario. I'm causing problems. Why do I have this anger towards my mom? Uh, this could have happened to anyone. And it was hard for me to handle. So I just had to stop communication with all of them. My sister she is making an effort, and I have to give her that much. She joined kind of her own little support group. She's
Mm-hmm.
getting therapy, and she has told me, uh, I'm here for you. I'm your sister, and I love you. And even though she is in constant communication with my mom, and she does still think like you and mom need to talk to each other. That's what she thinks will fix this, is that mom and I will need to talk to each other. Not that my mom needs to be honest or show any sort of love or support or remorse at all. But then she thinks that mom and I just need to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but not my mom. My sister is trying. I will give her that much. And I really actually appreciate the last couple months how she's been trying to be more supportive to me. That's where we're at now.
What's the age difference between
She
between
is 3.5 years older, but if she were here today, she would ask you, she would be like, which one's older? Who looks older? Lily looks older. She's older. Yeah. 3.5. So when my mom slept with her coworker, but for a
Mhm.
while she was doing the whole, he was my boss. And I started to get concerned, like, was this a position of empower? Like,
Mhm.
was this, anyway, I'm moving past that now because it wasn't my, I don't believe it was her boss. It is a coworker. And my mom was 30 years old, an executive, had all the resources you could imagine. She was privileged. She had a great job. And again, 30 years old. She was not some confused teenager that got
Right.
knocked up, excuse my language, but you know what I mean? She was fully capable of being able to access some sort of a blood
Like
test.
1980, right? 1980, 1981.
81. Yeah.
She's got shoulder pads. She's got logos.
She did. Oh my
Hair
gosh.
probably like crimped.
I blue eyeliner. Yeah.
Mhm. Totally. Power suits.
Totally. Oh
She's
my god.
not the story of a victim.
No, no. I mean, I've seen pictures of her getting on the private plane with other executives at this large company, and who actually my birth father was also an executive at, and he ended up being the president in the 90s of this company. But yeah, she was not this scared, naive young lady. She was a woman that had the ability to get, some sort of a, I shouldn't say DNA testing. I don't know if exactly if they had that in 1981, but I'm sure they had blood testing or some sort of paternity testing. She could have been honest. She could have told both men, both my birth certificate father and my biological father, that she wasn't sure.
Right. Do you know if it was do you know if their experience together was one time, or do you think it was an ongoing relationship?
I think it was a one night stand, and because my birth father told, I had maybe 2 or 3 phone conversations with him before we stopped talking, and
Mm.
he called it a one night stand. My mom called it, and God, this is the part where I just want to cover my ears, right? And like, but she's like, we only had sex once or twice. So her words. So I'm assuming a business trip of some sort, maybe a weekend away.
Right. I've seen the movies. I can imagine. I know how these business trips go.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Um, and so your biological father, you talked to him a couple times before I was gonna say deciding that you're not gonna have a relationship with him. Was that your decision?
No, it wasn't. It's
Man.
yeah, it is now. I mean, now that I've seen his character, I would
Mhm.
be very actually quite concerned if he came around. But I was that very first day I emailed him because I thought, first of all, I was like, was my mom raped? Like, who is this guy? Is he alive? Is he dead? So I had to Google him, and he's still alive. And I found an email address. He has his own website, and um, he responded that night and said, I do remember your mother. I believe there could be some truth to this. And don't you worry, we will bring clarity to this situation. And I found like comfort, and I thought, wow, this is going to be good. And I think maybe I got a little too overexcited.
Mhm. That's such a I feel like that's such a I mean, I okay, so maybe I'm making like some grand generalizations, but like that feels like such a man executive response.
Totally.
Like, of course, in retrospect, probably more, but to be like, I'll take care of it. We'll figure this out. Don't you worry.
Yep.
I'll give a diplomatic response that will be like, it's very pat on the shoulder.
Yes.
Don't you
Yeah.
worry, little girl. Yeah,
Yes.
I
And
would
I
have fallen
see
for it too. I would have been like hook, line, and sinker.
that. And I totally see that now because because I thought I was going crazy with his second and third email, I printed them off. I showed my best friends, and they are like, oh my God, patronizing, condescending, like with his further
Mhm.
correspondence. But yeah, in the beginning, I'm like, oh, good. He's not I mean, all the things you fear. And things got weird, right? A couple weeks later, we decided to have a phone call. His emails were just very confusing. They were like, I'm out of the country, so I can't speak. I'll be back in the country in a week. Get in touch with me. And then all of a sudden it was like, Lily, I never heard from you. I thought you were going to get back in touch with me. It was just like I was pulling my hair out like, wait, what? I immediately wanted his approval and wanted him to like me and wanted to do everything just right. And I was confused why he kept saying I didn't get back in touch with him. It was just very confusing. I remember going into our first phone call, scared to death with my list of questions, and I don't know if it's because I mean, he's not old, he's 70 something, but I was like, is this like a man thing where he's missing details? Sorry. Or is this, I mean, because my birth certificate father is a guy that kind of skims text, skims emails. So I thought maybe this is how my biological father would be. He wouldn't get the full details. But he said in that first phone call, well, I finally told my wife. And I was like really sad and shocked because it was like 3, 4 weeks later. I was like, wait, you didn't tell your wife? I guess I shouldn't. I don't know what I would do if I were in his position, but I just got nervous because immediately I thought he didn't tell her right away. I mean, I guess I don't know. That just bothered me. I'll say that.
I would like to validate your bothered some feelings. That would bother me too.
Yeah, thank you. Uh, it got weird. In a phone call, and at the time I took it the wrong way. Now I understand what he was trying to say, but he said to me, I am not interested, Lily, in replacing your father. Your father did a great job raising you. Um, he really had no reason to believe that or know what he was talking about, but that's what he told me. He said,
I hate when people do that. Sorry.
he said, your father did a great job raising you. I'm not interested in stepping on any toes. I will never replace your father, and I'm not interested in doing that. I just want to make that perfectly clear. And at the time I thought, wow, what a gentleman. He's not trying to take my dad's place. How kind. I realized later, weeks later, he was telling me he does not want to play a father role at all with me.
Right.
He didn't want to acknowledge he was my father. He didn't want to acknowledge that I was even his biological daughter. That's what he was trying to say. But at the time, I'm like thanking him, and I'm like, "Oh, thanks, Bill." Like,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
he's a man who knows what he's doing.
yes, very much so. I've my best friend used the word controlling when she read one of his very long, very eloquent emails, and that's what makes it so dangerous to me. Is he's really smart, and his the way he talks, it's, gosh, dare I say manipulative, but it's like, whew, it is, um, it's easy to be tricked. It's
Mhm.
scary. So he said, how we left it is he said he would potentially be in touch with me over the summer. This was April or May of 2019, and that summer came and went. And then, heck, we're in 2020 now. The summer of 2020 came and went. So we haven't talked since, but that's that. That was kind of my experience with Bill. He did also tell me, my biological father, because I said, "Well, I've tried to contact your kids." Notice how I said your kids, and I didn't like include me at all as being one of his kids. But
Mhm.
I said, I contacted, I guess it would be my half brother and half sister, and I don't think they've heard, or I don't know if they read the messages. He said, "Oh no, they know, they saw them."
Yeah.
My family has really let me take the lead on this, and my family follows my lead.
He's an executive of everybody.
Yes, apparently so.
Mhm.
Ugh. So anyway, I just got really like an ick factor from him, and unfortunately, I was really bummed. I thought maybe some of my cousins or uncles, gosh, it's weird calling them cousins and uncles, isn't it? His offspring and his nieces and nephews, I thought would respond to my messages, and none of them did.
Hmm.
So I guess he has placed himself in the self-appointed executive position of the family, and it looks like they are kind of following that, which sucks, but I guess that's their family dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? It's so hard to know what kind of what kind of things are being like communicated behind, like I want to say behind your back, and it's not necessarily intentionally behind your
Yep.
back, but um my own parents' understanding of like DNA testing is has been eye-opening to because I mean my parents must represent a large part of the population, and they just are very wary about this information, um
Ah,
and also like wary of messages,
yes.
um and they're just like, there's this person and I mean I think he's being personal, but they probably don't even know that it's personal for you. um
True. They
or they
could
might
probably think
just
I'm
say,
a con artist or something.
right, like, yeah, my parents were like, oh gosh, you have to watch out for those people that'll contact you, um and I just they're scared. It's like new technology is scary, newer and newer technology.
Hmm.
And I don't know. I would love to know. I guess I would love to know what's going on over there. But yeah, but I'm sorry. The point is that you were disappointed.
Yeah. But what you were just saying is that's something I'll touch on, because I don't know the real answer, do I? I don't know why he hasn't responded. I don't know why his children haven't. And I have been in therapy about this. And one of my things is, oh, what is the word? You mental health experts, is it, what's another word for misperceptions? Distortions, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I had to, and it was kind of mind blowing and eye opening, I should say, when I found this out. Like my distortions around this, like, do I have fortune telling and mind reading tendencies? Like, yeah, I do. So do I really know what he's thinking and what his offspring are thinking? And in my brain, I've concocted this scenario, but I don't really know.
I
Good
think it's
point.
hard for anybody to not have these experiences as rejections,
Hmm.
and the um and I'm not defending your family, but who, yeah, like who knows? My dad even said, well, my birth certificate dad said once. He was like, "Oh yeah," because he's done these tests, and so there's a whole other story there. But he said, "Oh yeah, I get messages all the time. I don't read anything," and I was like, "Dad, those are humans." Like, what? Like, and he's like, ah, I don't know. Um, like it just never even occurred to him that he doesn't know about, I mean, and he knows now, but like at the time, like he has no idea or he hadn't fathomed that there could be NPE connection going on and people having real needs for tribe and history and understanding of who they are.
Yeah. Yeah, what is that, the not responding? Now, with your dad's case, I can understand that because I have a picture of him in my head, though. But I've had one, a couple weeks ago I was really excited. I had on my biological father's side a first cousin write me. And he said, "How can you be my first cousin? I know all my first cousins. I've never in my life heard of you or seen you. How are you showing up on here?" And I wrote him as carefully as I could, kind of shocked that no one had told him, including his brother, who I'd already messaged. But I said, "Well, I hate to tell you this, but I guess you didn't know your uncle Bill. We found out, last year that he is my biological father. I'm his daughter, and blah, 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 et cetera. Fill in the story." And I
Mm-hmm.
wrote him answering his questions. And I said to him, here's my mistake. I said, "I totally understand if if this is too much for you and if you don't want to be in contact. But if so, I'd love to be in contact with you. I'd love to know more." And I was trying to be as gentle as possible, but I gave him an out. And
Mm-hmm.
he took it and he didn't respond to me. And I was so bummed out. I'm like, finally, I had someone from that side of the family reach out to me, ask me a question. I answered the question, but that was the end of communication. I saw it was read at 4:31 p.m., like I'm constantly on checking the check marks. And I don't know what is up with it, the not wanting to respond. It's just, ooh, it's really disheartening at times, but I just have to have some acceptance for it, I guess. I can't make people respond, right?
Yeah, this hits people in a really deep primal place, I think. Um, and people, I think people want to protect the system, the family system that is in place, and disruption of that system is a very frightening idea. And i and so that comes off as all sorts of things, the defense against that fright, that's fear, so it comes off as apathy, it comes off as aggression, it comes off as all sorts of things, like
Hmm.
it's interesting now that you're making me think about it.
Mhm.
um because I'm trying to imagine like my relationship with my cousins, and I have cousins that I'm close with and cousins that I'm not close with, and aunts and uncles, same thing, aunts and uncles that I'm close with, aunts and uncles that I'm not close with, and I'm trying to imagine if somebody contacted me, all the different ways I would be thinking about who I was protecting and who I was
Mm.
serving. And it wouldn't be as hard for me because I'm an NPE and I get it. So I know,
Yeah.
but like if I didn't have this experience, I don't know. I don't know. You
Yeah.
guys, I don't know.
I do think, now that we're talking about it, I do actually think, and you just said the words, protective of the family system. I could see myself being that way. I'm a bit skeptical. If somebody messaged me, claimed they're related to me, I would say, what is their intentions? What are they getting at?
Hmm.
Who is this going to hurt? I could see not responding at first anyway, but I would definitely do my research on the side. I would
Right?
I would be Googling and Facebook stalking them. But that's, yeah, yeah. So I can see that, the non-response.
But it's very frustrating to be in I want to say the driver in our seat, wherever
Mhm.
wherever
Yeah.
in our place, it's really hard. It's really hard to want answers and just have no control. There's so much powerlessness in these experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So much powerlessness. And your birth certificate, Dad, is he in this narrative at all?
Yeah, I'm laughing because I know him. He's an interesting character. Uh, my birth certificate father is more recently he started to come around again a couple months ago. We had I guess a socially distanced play date on the driveway, and a couple months ago, and he did decide to bring it up. Terrible timing with like all the grandchildren running around, and he's a very difficult communicator.
Mm.
Uh, and he is in this story now. He didn't talk to me about it for an entire year. All that he said to me, with his very, very strict Christian values, was that he has forgiven my mother, and he can't hold anything against her, and he's done with it. And I was okay. It doesn't sound like you've forgiven her. I mean, this was my thought. I didn't say this, but okay. Okay. He brought this up again. He didn't want to talk about it. I didn't really want to talk to him about. I don't really like to talk to anything about anything with him. He just doesn't have the emotional the EQ, the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have the words. He doesn't have empathy. Really doesn't. He his best friend slash first cousin found out through an ancestry test he has another daughter out there.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, my dad is so welcoming of this young woman, as he should be, as all families should be, this NPE. And so now he's decided to come back around to me. He's got this newfound empathy. He's absolutely horrified for me that my biological father's family never welcomed me. And now he wants to talk about it. So I guess I have some gratitude, but you know, if this buddy of his, if his best, his cousin hadn't gone through it, I think he'd still be silent to me about it.
Right. There's something bittersweet about the navigation of that.
Yep.
Yeah. And but so were he and your mother were married when you were born?
Yeah, it's like a terrible, terrible, volatile marriage. Yeah, one of
Okay.
those
So they weren't married.
abusive.
So when did they split up?
I've heard before I was born, and I've heard after I was born. I found a death or not death. I found a divorce certificate for when I was about a year old. But yeah, I would say they probably had a 4-year marriage. I was conceived near the tail end of their marriage. My mom already had my older sister with him. She was
Mhm.
already legally married to him, so she wanted him to be the father. She in her mind anyway,
Uh,
and.
uh-huh.
My
There's one way to guarantee that. So,
my my dad said to me, he said, "Well, even if she had sex with Bill and then came around and had sex with me in that same weekend, there's no way she could have known who was the father. I don't blame her for that." And I said, "But Dad, she should have at least told you this was a possibility. She should have told the midwife. She should have told Bill. I mean, he never got a chance to bond with me or hold me as a baby. The she should have been honest." And he's like, "I can't hold that against her." I'm like, "Okay."
okay.
Okay. That's what he just places it all on that one act. The one act where she had unprotected sex with another man, and that he has to forgive her for it because his words, "It was so long ago."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "But Dad, you realize it wasn't long ago. This was a continuing lie, a continuing secret my entire life. I caught her in it. I found out through a DNA test. This wasn't 38 years ago. I found this out a year and a half ago, and
Mm-hmm.
we caught her on it." And but he doesn't wrap his brain around that. It's challenging.
Yeah. Sounds like he doesn't want to.
Yes, yes. Living in denial is a much
Yeah.
bliss. Ignorance is
Yeah.
bliss, right? For some of us.
I have, the past 2 years have opened my eyes to the power of denial in a way that I I didn't know what I didn't know about how strong and powerful denial can be. It is it's an amazing force. But he'd been fairly present as a dad for your childhood and life, even though they weren't.
Uh, kind of. He wasn't much of in the way of a provider, but he had me every other weekend, and he was very fun. I will never. He was very, very fun when he had us, but um, yeah. But I think my stepfather was the continuing. You know, he was my stepfather was the father figure in my life, probably the warm, affectionate, loving person that was there reading me a book every night at bedtime. So I've there's so many dads now.
I was just about to say, like, your understanding of like the role of the father, like, of course, this NPE thing would. Um, I mean, of course, I mean, there's no one. It's always confusing, but
Yeah.
um, I can also see why, especially the comment of why it matters or doesn't matter who your father is, would be like an especially stinging rebuke
Hmm.
of the experience, um,
My
because
parents actually had such a terrible divorce. They kept taking each other to court. I mean, cops were called, domestics. It was bad. But my dad, who was a taxi cab driver living below the poverty line, he still does to this day by choice. He went to court back in 81, 82, 83 multiple times to get full custody of me and my sister, which is kind of shocking. I don't think he did it because he wanted to be 100% full-time father, but I think he definitely didn't want my mom to have us
Mhm.
100% of the time. And here it turns out all along I'm not even biologically his.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy. They went through this custody battle, and it did not sound like a good marriage or a good divorce. My parents refused to speak to each other every recital, every Christmas, every Thanksgiving. They weren't even allowed on each other's properties. They had to be, drop off zones at the end of the driveway,
Oof.
tires squealing and peeling. It was ridiculous. It wasn't until grandchildren came around that all of a sudden they decided, oh yeah, we can be perfectly friendly and fine and in the same room as each other. And I'm like, couldn't you guys have tried this like 20, 30 years ago when I was a little girl?
Yeah. God, it's so hard with,
Yeah.
yeah, totally. It's so hard when adults, um, like, I mean, we're all adults, but like when people come around to something and it's so nice, and yet I feel like it's so often that we or the children or the adult children are like, this is great, but I'm having a lot of feelings about
Hmm.
about the timing of this.
Yeah.
Um,
But yes, it is great. It is great that for the grandchildren's sake, they are both there and both able to hang out, and we can spend all Christmas just relaxed. And yeah, well, I don't know if relaxed is the right word.
is there anything else that you want to share about your story?
No, I don't think so. No, it's hard to share this. You're really easy to talk to about it, but it's hard to share because it's hard to remember some of this stuff sometimes.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I feel like sometimes I have to make myself think about it because otherwise I won't, because it's too hard.
Yeah.
It's too hard and it brings up too much stuff. So I'd rather just sort of um, keep moving forward or keep hearing other people's stories. I'd rather talk to other people about their stories. Um,
Yes. Yes,
like,
completely.
yeah, like, oh, maybe I should just focus on myself for a minute. Um, yeah. Oh, but thank you so much, Lily, for sharing everything that you shared and for the work you're doing with your podcast. I think you are reaching a whole new audience by offering the stories on as a podcast. I think you're totally right. All these stories they feel so good to know you're not alone, and it's such a wonderful like medium to have it in a way that you can listen to them.
Hmm.
Not everybody's on Facebook. Facebook support groups aren't aren't the end all be all, and um, so I think the more and more different ways we get these stories out, the better. so that not only does everyone who's in them know that they're not alone, but also so that more and more people can understand the scenario from all the different perspectives and their own choice making and advice giving in their life.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Eve.
Yeah. No, thank you. If you want to, if a listener wants to go find Lily Wood's podcast, NPE Stories, what is the best place for them to go do that?
NPE Stories. You can find it on all the podcasting platforms. I do have a Facebook page, NPE Stories. And personally, since I'm now actually assigning my name with it, you can find me on Instagram at Lily M. Wood, Lily. That's how you spell Lily. M as in Marie.
Cool. Lily M. Wood at Instagram. Awesome. Great. Well, thank you. This was so fun. I wish all my Mondays were like this, were as fun as this. Okay, so yeah. I'm trying to think, like, there's so much I want to talk about, so I'm trying to wrap it up, but I'm like, also, can we talk about France? Okay, so this was great. I'll just hit stop now.
Yes.
Thank you. Don't worry, I'll stop it after a minute.
One thing, I think it's so poignant when I ask Lily to tell her story and she says she doesn't want to tell it. I think it's a really beautiful moment of honesty between us because we both leapt into the idea of recording an episode together without maybe realizing that we were asking vulnerability of each other. And there's really something to be said about how both of us are really interested in hearing and sharing the stories of others, but we both get uncomfortable when it comes to our own personal journey. So and that's just to say that we're making these podcasts, but we're just people trying to figure out how to process our own stories as they unfold. I have huge gratitude for Lily for spending a morning with me a few weeks ago, and I hope we can bring you some more fun stuff like that in the future. Tomorrow is December, and then 2020 is basically over, so that's really weird. Last year, if you remember, if you were around, I took a deliberate holiday break and then came back like in the spring. This year, I didn't plan things as precisely. I'm not as organized. So you know what, guys? I don't really know what's happening. I will be back in 2 weeks with another episode. And then I don't know what's happening. It will be right around Christmas. So am I taking a break? Am I plowing through the holiday season? Check in with me on Instagram at Everything's Relative Podcast to find out. In the meantime, thanks for being here with me, everybody. Talk to you soon. Don't forget to wear a mask. Bye.
Everything's Relative with Eve Sturgis is produced by Kaylin Egan and Eve Sturgis. Eve is a licensed therapist in the state of California, but conversations on this podcast are not therapy sessions. This podcast is edited by Stephanie DeLon-Zick, the logo design is by Ivy McNally, and the music is used with permission by Goodbye the Band.
Hi, I'm Michelle Varay.
And I'm Kimberly Trung, and we are the host of Crush Fictionally, a podcast all about your favorite fictional characters from movies, TV shows, and more.
Each episode, we pick a theme, curate a list of characters that we love, why we love them, and some fun facts about the people who created them.
So if you've ever felt a true connection with a fictional character,
tune in to Crush Fictionally on Campfire Media.
Or wherever you find your podcast.
Campfire.